And please keep it to one per family. We're trying to be very frugal with our budget. It's on the front. Oh.
Page 4.
I missed it.
It's on the back. So page 4 is
There it is. All right, appears everyone's settled in. I thank you all for coming. I'm declaring this meeting open, our annual meeting for January 26, 2025. We do have a quorum, so we will proceed on. Our first order is for our pastor to start us with a blessing.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Holy God, we gather here today to go about the business and budgets of United Protestant Church. We ask by your gracious Spirit that you would help us remember that though we come here and many of us have spent our entire lives in this community, that this is not our church, this is your church. Guide our conversations, our questions, our decisions by your Spirit, that it may be your will that is achieved by and through us today, that your name be given glory and praise, and that you may guide us in your work of catching people and pulling them out alive. We pray all this in Jesus' name, trusting in your steadfast love and inexhaustible grace. Amen.
Thank you. So our first order of business is the approval of last year's meeting minutes. They are on the following page, on page 5, and followed on with 6 and 7. This was online to look at, but I do want to give time for people to look at. I'm asking that as you, we need a motion, of course, to approve, a second, and then a vote. When you do make the motion, I ask that you state your name first. That'll help Sue as she tries to keep up with everybody as she keeps the minutes for this meeting. A few minutes. Right, Wendy makes motion to approve. Rose seconds. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. I ask if any all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. The next order is we had a special meeting which has the congregational minutes on that. That's on page 8 of the report. Again, we'll need a motion and a second for that. Jennifer motions. Sean seconds.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. I'm calling to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Next order will be our financial report. Sue Schmidt will be reporting on the finances. You will see that beginning on page 10, 11 of the report.
Okay, good morning. I'm just going to give you a little bit background of 2024. As you may or may not be aware, we lost our longtime treasurer, Lloyd Lowe, as of February 1st of last year. Since we did not have anyone ready to assume that position, Lloyd spent several months training me on the financial system of this church so that we could pay our bills, reconcile our bank accounts, and make sure that everything balanced every month. And I'm happy to say that it did, because I was stressed out trying to do this job. In October, we discovered we had a new member of this church who had some financial background. She actually spent 30 years working for a financial planner. And so in talking with her, she decided she would like to give it a try. So I started working with Lynn Hallen on November 1st, also training her on the financial system, and she had agreed to take on this role. And in December, the Administrative Council officially approved her as our new treasurer. Many of you may not know Lynn, but I'm going to ask her to stand up so that you can see who she is. And I thank her for taking on this role and relieving me of this position. I will be her backup. We are still working together on this. But this has been an interesting year for me because it's been a learning experience. So we're going to go through these reports together, and I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview as to what each of this is. So if you look on page 11, that is our balance sheet. Okay. This just gives us an overview of our finances. Okay, at the top of the page shows the total for the PNC checking account, the PNC money market account, and the Capital One account as of December 31st, 2024. This is a summation of all cash that is available to UPC as of the end of December. As of December 31st, 2023, the year before, our total assets totaled $321,726.42. As of December 31st of 2024, our total assets decreased to $274,550.85. Okay? Below the total assets are the total liabilities and then the summation of the various funds which comprise our budget report. The amount of the total liabilities plus the funds equals the amount of total assets that are available. So the accounts balance, it's the same amount. Is there any question about the balance sheet? I will point out that prepaid pledges show up as a liability because that money was received in 2024, but it was intended for 2025. So we could not count it as income in 2024. We're counting it in 2025, so therefore it shows up as a liability. On January 1st, after we closed out the year, and Lloyd helped us do this, but when we closed out 2024, then on January 1st, we were able to move those prepaid pledges to the 2025 pledge income. You won't know that until January, when we do our January reports, and you'll see that at next year's annual meeting. Any questions so far? Okay. If you turn to pages 12 and 13, and I'm sorry, we had a hard time trying to format this page. Lloyd was much better at this than I was, so you're getting 2 pages, and you'll have to turn it so you can view it properly. But pages 12 and 13 is the fund activity report. Okay, this lists all of our funds and activities that occurred within the church within the calendar year of 2024. Okay. It shows the beginning balances, the receipts, the disbursements, and any internal transfers that occurred during the year for each fund. The operating fund is at the top line. That's our budget. That's our budget line item. Our treasurer's report basically comes out of the general operating fund. It shows you the beginning balance. We had a deficit last year, so it shows you that beginning balance. It shows the receipts of the total income that we brought in this year. It shows you the total expenses that we paid out this year. And then when we started the new year, Lloyd had to transfer money out or into that general operating fund to zero it out so that we could start our accounting year in 2024 at a zero balance. okay, you will see that the deficit for 2024 ended up being a negative $29,883.46. You will see all the other funds listed underneath. There are joy sharing funds, there's capital improvement funds, there's pads, there's memorials, there's the UPC shopper card. Each of those funds might have taken money in through the year. Some money was paid out during the year, especially the joy sharing funds, because as you know, we collect monthly for a different joy sharing. So the money goes in for a month, and then eventually that money gets paid out to the recipient, and then it zeroes out that fund once the money's been paid out. So I just wanted to tell you about that. Deficit obviously means that we spent more than we took in. Transfers refer to money that had been taken from one fund and moved to another fund. Okay. Sometimes pads needed to buy shopper cards for, so they would take money out of their fund to pay for the shopper cards. You would see that as a transfer. Okay. Any questions regarding the fund activity report? Okay. Moving on, pages 14 through 16 shows you the actual treasurer's report. This is a line-by-line item of our general operating fund. This is our annual budget, so to speak, and how we operate with our income and expenses for the year. Okay. The top of the page of 14 will show you how our income was derived for the year, through pledges, contributions, interest, loose offerings, building use, etc. It gives you a line-by-line item. The first column shows you the year-to-date balance of what we collected for the whole year. The second column is what they projected, what they budgeted that we would project to receive. And then, of course, the third column shows you the difference between the two amounts. Okay? So for the year, we brought in a total of $229,767.30. We were slightly under what we had projected in the budget of $231,419. Okay? Any questions on income so far? Okay. Under expenses, there is a line item for each expense that was paid out and the amount spent on each item. And that continues through page 14 and all the way through page 15. At the bottom of page 15, it gives you the total of how much we spent for the year. That total was $259,650.76. They budgeted our expenses to be $268,284. So we were under budget, which is good because we were also under budget with income. So that created our deficit. Okay. The top of page 16, sorry, we had to go to 3 pages, wouldn't all fit, shows you what the deficit is and what it was projected to be. So our deficit was a minus $29,883.46. They projected a deficit of minus $36,865. So not, you know, we ended kind of on a positive note, if you want to look at it from that perspective. It could have been worse. We're glad it wasn't, but it's still a deficit. So are there any questions regarding our expenses or anything related on pages 14 through 16? Okay, then I'm going to turn it over to Dale for approval of this so I can go back and type this in the minutes.
So I need a motion for approving the financial reports for 2024.
I gotta get my computer running here.
Okay. It's Craig way in the back there.
Wait, my computer's down.
Okay. Went to sleep.
It did, it went to sleep. I have to get this back. Okay,
So Craig Fetchel is the,
Craig Fischel,
yep.
thank you, Craig.
And I think Sean was making second on it. That's all.
Sean, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing anything, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Next, Rick Berg, Chair of Operations, will come forward to present the budget for 2025.
Today I'm representing the Finance Committee. I'm going to kind of go through some things here. Not hearing? Is that better? Okay. Basically, the 2024 budgeted deficit was $37,000, but we ended up with only $30,000, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, this year, the projected income, basically last year what helped us was the projected income was met and an unfulfilled music director position reduced the deficit. This year, it's not looking as good as last year. Anticipated income is affected by our loss of members through death and changing to other churches. We have been running a deficit for a number of years, and obviously this trend is not good for the long-term health of the church. Our current deficit rate, we will have used all of our endowment funds in approximately 2 years, which is concerning. With that in mind, the Finance Committee and the Administration Council have been struggling with the budget for weeks. The 2 weeks have gone over the 100-line budget line by line, looking at ways to reduce the cost. They have brought forward a bare-bones budget with cuts wherever possible. From the pledges received to date, our estimated income from all sources is expected to reduce by $30,000 in 2025 versus 2024. So the next question is, how do we address this? Well, Finance and Council will update the congregation of our financial situation monthly via the bulletin and Tuesday newsletter. We also plan on showing the following to the congregation on a monthly basis to update this: year-to-date income, year-to-date expenses, and year-to-date deficit. We are calling on all members to look at ways to enhance the church's income for 2025. These will include fundraising ideas that you have, evangelism, new space rental to outside organizations, and any other suggestions to increase revenue. Please feel free to bring it forward to us. We need to pray for our church to let God make known His will to help us move forward in the way of Christ. Now, the Old Testament alludes to a 10% tithe in several places. This is a tough standard that many of us find very hard and impossible to do. In the past, I've been one of those. I've been increasing my commitment every year, and this year I'm committed to 15% tithe for my family. Please pray and look into your heart to see if you can increase your donation to our church family. I'm looking forward to this challenge, and our church can be stronger for it. Now, what I'd like to do is go over page 17, which is kind of a condensed version, a little bit easier to understand, of the budget. So basically, the income, if you look at the bottom line, income is $201,000 for next year. We proposed versus 24 is $231,000. So what is it used for? What is it from, I should say? This is mostly pledges and contributions, and some from building usage. We estimate a drop of $30,000 because of less membership and the loss of our long-term tenant, the Grays Lake Park District's preschool. They'll be leaving us in June. If anyone has suggestions for a new group to rent space, please let us know. So the next section is mission outreach. What is that? Basically, it's our contribution to our 2 denominations, and this is unchanged from 2024. The next item is spiritual life and outreach. This is for outreach to the community and necessary copyright licenses to allow us to use our music and some written materials in the church and online. This has been reduced by about $1,200. The next item is Christian education. That's basically the cost of youth curriculum and vacation Bible school. This has been reduced by about $600. Next one is staff parish. This is to cover the cost of our staff personnel. We have had to cut hours and pay to help the budget this year. We've reduced this by about $11,500. So the church office is the next item. It's basically the cost of office supplies and the copier. The increase is caused by the need to replace our obsolete copier, I should say. There's no repair parts available for it, it's so old, with the new lease-to-own copier. This reduces our yearly costs so that we can spread out the cost of this copier over 5 years. This caused the amount to increase on that line item by about $3,600. Now, buildings and grounds, this covers the cost of all basically maintaining this 50-year-old building and the parsonage, which has a few years on it also. It includes property and liability insurance, HVAC and elevator maintenance, general maintenance, and snow removal. This was held to a $1,000 increase. Utilities. We are on a long-term, this is about, it's down at the bottom here, so it's about $30,000 this year. We are on long-term contracts for electricity and gas, and that helps us control our yearly costs. But we do expect a 10% increase this year. So budgetary, that's kind of a fixed cost too. These are bank and payroll service charges. They're basically unchanged. So the bottom line, in the face of ever-increasing costs, we have been able to lower the budget from 2024 to by about $4,000. But unfortunately, if you look at the bottom line, that gives us over a $62,000 deficit, which is not sustainable. So we need to do better this year. We have to figure out ways of really helping this church out deal with this. Are there any questions? What's next?
Prove it.
Okay. How'd you go?
All
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
That's serious.
That is very serious. You bet.
And in the planning stages, how is this going to affect the church for the coming year?
Well, the coming year, basically, we've had to cut back hours on people. We've looked at all the different groups, and they've tried to reduce their costs as much as possible, but we do have a lot of fixed costs, unfortunately, with a building like this. My main concern is long-term. We just obviously can't continue like that. We need to do better. Yeah.
One thing you might explain, Rick, is what we handle with this, because sometimes people are new and they don't know how we use the endowment fund and what that means exactly.
Okay. The endowment fund is, I mean, in theory, is something we don't want to spend against. It's a way of actually increasing the amount that the money that the church has by interest rates, or by interest on bonds, whatever we have it in. Unfortunately, we've had to dip into that to cover expenses of the church, and unfortunately, that's not going to last forever. So, does that help?
Can I add one comment to that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can come up there. Stephanie works for the Wisconsin and Minnesota conferences, And there's a gentleman in the Wisconsin Conference who has been their finance guy for years, and he's very, very knowledgeable, and he's done the job for years, and he regularly consults with churches. And she was just sharing some things about our process with him, and he shared with her that 10 years ago, when he spoke with churches, he told every one of them, whatever you do, do not touch your endowment. And he said since pandemic, he's been saying, this is the rainy day you've been saving your endowment for. That said, we're in agreement that the goal is still not to empty the endowment. But I do want to name that there's a tension here between, in an ideal world, you get your endowment to a place where you can supplement the budget off of just the yield of the interest every year, which we're not there yet. But I think we're trying very hard to hold that tension, but to name that part of the reason the endowment is there is to support the church through hard times, and also to say that the intention is not to just empty it. So if that's some helpful perspective, I found it helpful. So I wanted to share that for something to process.
Okay, can you hear me?
Why are we losing the park district? Did they have?
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Why are we losing the park district?
Basically, they have a spot that that they can rent for free that they haven't for a number of years. We raised the rent on them. They had very low rent, and we're trying to help our budget. And they decided that was the trip point for them, unfortunately. So they are going to go to a room that they've had for years that they just haven't used at the Park District. But they'll be paying the new rate through June. Any other questions?
I'm sorry. Do we have any potential, organizations that might be interested in using?
We have a startup school that is interested. That's still in negotiations, and they're trying to see if that's going to be viable for them. But that's the only thing we have right now. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
So I'm now asking for a motion from the floor to approve the budget presented for 2025. Judy gotcha. Rose, you're going to take second then?
Judy Eager,
Yes. Mm-hmm. You'll take second. All right. Last call for questions. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Oh, what? Dave's extending? All right. Yep.
Oh, one abstention?
Yep.
Two?
Two? Moving back.
Two abstentions.
Okay. I mean, there's going to be three.
Three?
Well, we don't have to, it's just three. No names, but.
I'm not putting names in.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Then moving on, the next is presentation of the membership report by Pastor Jason.
Well, if you want the full membership report, it's on page 18. But just to give you the highlights, last year we added 12 new members through confirmation and membership transfers. We lost 9 members, 5 of whom were to death, and 4 were retired by request, leaving us with a total membership of 186 members. Any further questions on the membership report? Seeing none, would I believe we need a motion to approve? Yes, sir.
I remember a while ago, we were kind of like clearing through our lists, and has that process been finished, or is it still ongoing?
Yes. It is. Let me say this: there was a large-scale effort to update the record. There is an ongoing tidying of the membership rolls, but the big push to reach out and get the rolls updated is completed and was presented and passed last year. So thank you for the question. 186 is current members, people who want to be included in membership.
All right, so that 186, so the kids who've been confirmed and have gone off to college and started their lives, are they in that 186, or have they been sort of?
Some of them are.
Okay.
Some are, but most of them have also been checked in with, so to speak. So a number have requested to be taken off. Those who are left, as I understand it, as we understand it, want to be included at this point.
Or they never.
Or they haven't responded.
Yeah, yeah. We still have more clearing up of the list.
I think we can receive that motion again to approve. We have a second?
Judy?
Second. Do you want to call for the vote? All right, sure. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Next, Ruth is going to come up and present our honorary deacon for this year.
Hi, our honorary deacon for this year is Diane Weinkoff. And I said I'm not going to cry, but I'm going to cry throughout this whole thing. Diane would have been so pleased to have been honored. She would have been tickled pink. Diane Weinkoff was a member of Children's Ministry Committee. She taught Sunday school. She loved to dress up for Martha's bed and breakfast. She was wonderful. She could tell those stories, and those kids were eating out of her hands. She also did adult education, served on the adult education committee, and taught adult classes as well. She ran our UPC shopper card for so long. She was an ad council member. She was vice chair, and she was chair. And she played bells next to me. So she was a friend to so many of us. And if anybody was a good and faithful servant, it was Diane. So she is our honorary member. And that's all I got to say. We picked a good one. I wish she were here to get it in person.
So do we all. Let us celebrate Diane. Ruth, thank you. I would like to ask you all, if you would be so kind, to turn to page 20 and 21. And you will notice that there are a number of open positions in the nominating report. As some of you will know, a number of these have been open for a year or even two. And I want to share that our Governance Task Force Committee is working very hard to redo our bylaws in order to make things leaner and more efficient because of difficulties for a couple years running filling these positions. And we hope to be, I'm looking at the members, to be sharing very soon, throughout the years as the team works, we will be bringing our work to you and involving the whole church in conversation, prayer, and to take part in that process. So that will be coming soon. Second, I do want to name that we do in our Constitution and bylaws currently ask that nominations be taken from the floor. We do ask that you be nominated by someone else. So if any of you are in your seat right now feeling that maybe you could be called to any of these positions, I will give you a minute. If you could certainly ask the person next to you to nominate you. Third, I also, as I recall, it is possible at the end of the nominating, and I'm looking at Dale, our Rogers Rule Extraordinaire member, I do believe that it is possible to turn the executive confirmation powers over to the ad council so that if these positions aren't filled, I will name specifically that for me, we did have Carol, our moderator, for a number of reasons, felt that it was time for her to return to her Roman Catholic roots and worship with her family. So that, of course, of all of these is stands out for me, and that is a role we need, and we need the right person filled. Most of these that are open are ones that really need, they need to be filled, but they need to be filled also by the right person. So with that, I think, can I just open the floor for nominations? Don't everybody nominate at once? I do, though. Open the floor for nominations for any of these positions. Yes, Dick.
Looking at the report, I see all the yellow marks with the vacancies, but while I might be interested in some of them, I don't know what they entail, and therefore I just sit here. And so I'm wondering if there's some way where we could get some information on what these vacant positions entail.
Absolutely, and I think I would propose two ways. One would be that we could go through them, or if we want to move not confirmation to ad council, that certainly allows nominations to continue that work, which would include, if any of them, we could. I'm happy to explain all of them. Sue would be happy to explain all of them. Rose would be happy to explain all of them. Or if you have a specific one that you want to ask us, we can run through that quickly and can certainly nominate you to the ad council at a later time, which we did last year and were able to fill most, though not all, of the positions last year.
And they also listed in the bylaws, if you can find a copy around somewhere, all the bylaws have what the positions are, each of those committees.
Any questions on the report? So that is not moving to accept the report or to do the election of the nominated officers. Just any further questions on the report itself? Would someone like to motion to approve the nominations report?
Jen and Judy, do you care which order you're in?
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Calling the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Do we need to move then to approve and elect the? Yes.
I don't see that listed on the agenda. Are we going to?
We are going to hit it. So
Okay,
here.
cool.
Yep.
Do you want to
Yeah.
move the election of the officers
Right.
and the?
Right. So we need a motion to accept the officers that are on the nomination report. So need a motion from the floor. Rose Peck. Second. Karen Knapp. Gotcha. Any other questions? All right, calling a vote. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Sean Del Grosso, we got one. Just an abstention, one abstention. Yep. Okay, first of all, we forgot when we were putting this agenda together, and that's my fault for not catching it. We've been announcing in the pulpit for the last 2 weeks, we have changes to the Constitution. There was one stuck into the bulletins today, if you don't see that. So we're going to need a motion on these. So the first one will be to change Article 6, paragraph 3, and Article 9, paragraph 2D, to delete the restriction of a member that cannot serve in the same position for more than 6 consecutive years. Ruth makes that motion. I can't see in the back, sorry. Was that Wendy's making the second?
Wendy, Fry, second.
Questions? Question in the back from Sean.
Sorry if I'm missing something. Are we just talking about the paragraph 1? The quorum question?
No, I missed it. I'm sorry. I got down to the bottom one.
Got it. Is there any way that we can make this specific to roles that can?
Well, it is specific in the Constitution. If you did, it's really the moderator, the administrative council chair, and the vice chair. Those are the 3 positions.
Got it.
Any other questions?
Are we voting on all 3 or just that one that you called out?
Just the one right now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Recall. So I'm going to ask that, because we have to, this is a 2/3 vote that's required, that, and I don't consider it very controversial, I'm going to ask all in favor to please raise your hands. Okay. You may set them down. All opposed, raise their hands. Okay, thank you. Any abstentions, raise your hands. The vote passes. Thank you. So the one that's on the top, I'm sorry I missed it. I was looking down. Article 6, paragraph 1, change the quorum from 6 members shall be considered a quorum to 5. Need a motion to put that on the floor. Ruth makes the motion. Rick seconds. Questions?
Who made the second?
Rick did.
Well, who
I think
made the first then?
Ruth.
Ruth, sorry.
Sorry. Questions? Not seeing any. Calling to vote. Again, we need to raise of hands. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. All opposed, raise your hands. Any abstentions, raise your hands. Thank you very much. That passes. The next item was brought up at council. That has been requested that the worship be moved to 10:30, and that Christian education will then start at 9:15. The reason being is that there are a lot of people who are trying to go to Christian education and also want to be a portion of the worship service, and part of that is preparing the worship service ahead of time. So that's being proposed that we change our worship service to starting at 10:30 and our Christian education starting at 9:15. That gives basically, if it goes for an hour, 10:15, and the time in between there to get for parents to go pick up their youth at children's ministry and be able to get to church at a reasonable time. This is not a hard, fast thing, so this is just more questions and answering purposes right now.
All right, so currently, education hours 9 o'clock and church is at 10 o'clock.
Yes, that's correct.
So this is moving church back half an hour, but why are we moving Christian education back 15 minutes?
Well, I need to have someone who is part of that explain why. Yeah.
A third thing that's in the background is how much time we want to ask a parent who's going to go to all of the above to also then have their children here. So the thought was we'd have worship be at an even time, 10:15. Give 15 more minutes so that people can go to both Christian Ed and choir, but then not ask children to be here entertained for a whole another half an hour. So, does that make sense?
When would this be proposed to start, was the question. The change in time.
What would you think? I mean, this was brought up, so I wasn't.
I think we would probably take at least a week or two.
Right, I wouldn't be right.
Just to make the announcement, maybe even 3 weeks to make the announcement. We'd make it, in all of our channels. So 3 weeks to a month, I think is what makes sense.
I'd just like to hear a little bit about the thinking behind changing the worship time versus the education hour time. Is it possible to keep the worship time the same but move education hour a little earlier?
Well, I can speak of why I would be against that, and it's not. This is the opinion of Dale Message, not any member of the church or anything. I think if we move education hours sooner, we put a more strain upon our families with young people trying to get here, getting everybody ready to get here. I liked when it was proposed that education hour was being proposed to be moved back a little bit, just for that purpose. But again, that's the opinion of Dale Message.
We could entertain 9 o'clock and 10:15 as a
Yeah.
friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Personally, I liked coming to church at 8:15, then doing the education hour between two services, so you can choose which service you do. Education hour is at 9:15. It was awful going to 10 o'clock. I hate the thought of going to 10:30. I don't as well continue at the church. I hate this late church. I think if you can't get up to come to church at 9 o'clock, maybe you should have other things you should be doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Cost us money to rebrand things to make it 10:30?
Actually, we can pull the tape off of the outside.
It used to be.
Linda has a question.
Why are we changing it for a whole half hour. Why not just 15 minutes? Education hour could get out at 10. We'd start church at 10:15. That's a little bit better than 10:30.
That was talked about, I know, in the conversation at the council meeting. It just, a lot of people thought it's better to either start church at 10, 10:30 versus 10:15. That's just by that. Judy has a question.
I personally would like to take our church service at 10 a.m., and I would prefer to have the children's hour perhaps 15 minutes earlier for Christian education. Instead of 9 o'clock, start at 8:45 and still have church at 10.
I just want to clarify something. This morning, this is just presented as an idea, right? We do not have to vote on it?
That is correct. This is not a vote. This is what I wanted to, this is why I brought it up at council, that I wanted to hear from the congregation about this proposal.
Well, John and I have only been members of the church for a year, but the time slot is marvelous. If you move it back, a lot of people aren't getting out of the sanctuary in the church till noon because of cleanup and getting everything ready to close the church for the day. Not only that, more and more people are signing their children up for sports on Sundays. We've all seen the benefit of what's happening in that. If we move it back, there's going to be more people that will not join the church because their kids are in sports. And it's just the life that's happening nowadays. So I think it's beneficial if we have to move anything, we move it a little bit sooner to start and leave the service at what it is now.
My family does we have children that go to children's education in the morning, and I go to adult education in the morning, and the 9 to 10, we like it. So just my opinion, but the 9 and the 10 works well. It's also everything else in the world, there's easy numbers to remember, so I would stick with 9 and 10 if it was up to me.
Ruth has a question back there, Andrew. Comment.
Since we're just kind of throwing ideas out there, again, I like 10 o'clock. I don't really think we should move it back, but here's another idea. What if we did church at 9 and did Sunday school after, because then people who were in choir could attend Sunday school. As it stands, I can't really attend any adult ed. I'd love to, but when bells play, we practice the whole time before, and when choir, we pretty much practice as well. So the way we currently have it kicks me out of doing adult ed and volunteering every now and then for children's. But if we flipped, we'd have an earlier service, which would appease many people who miss the 8:15, and it would get people out of here earlier to get to their family sports activities if they had them. And people like me who like to sing and play bells could actually learn about Jesus too.
Jerry, you got a question, comment? Oh. Joseph, Jerry's got one too.
I advocate at the least to keep the service at 10 and to start Christian education at 8:45. The problem with moving it back to 10:30, we have had people stay here for committee meetings sometimes. So that would push people's time back even farther for leaving this church. So that's just something I think should be considered in this.
Another thought, shorten education hour to 45 minutes.
You're on, Emily.
So the other I was thinking is, Ruth, as we're just kind of putting out ideas, since I've been singing in choir, we've had 3 directors and one's been self-directed, and this is the first time that we've had a music practice in the morning that impacted our Christian education hours so significantly. So I'm curious if that might be an option, if we could change the rehearsal time so that we could participate in both. So I feel like that would also alleviate some of the issues, because it has worked out slightly differently in the past.
Okay, I thank everyone for their information. This is why I wanted to bring it before the congregation, so that it was well vetted and we can understand it when we go back to council and talk about it. And I encourage you to talk to any council members along the way too.
Yeah, after listening to everybody, it sounds like it might make a lot of sense to have church move up to 9 o'clock and then have the Christian hour afterwards. That seems like that might be a big help for a lot of folks, and especially the people that want to come in earlier.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, that'll be a discussion at the Administrative Council. Administrative Council is not a closed session meeting, so if there are people that would like to come, we meet on the 3rd Monday of the month, starting at 8 p.m. There are other reports within the document. I hope that you take time to look at them. If you have any particular questions about anything that's reported in there that you would like to have that person asked about, this is the time to do that. I will say, as Pastor Jason has said, as an honorary member of the government task force, our plan is to come to you quarterly in the congregation to let you know of how we're moving along, letting you know what we're thinking of, so that it's not a big surprise as it goes through. So those that are looking at maybe March, June, September, and then sometime in December too. So that's sort of a thought process on that. You want to go back to
I don't know your thought process, but is it to maybe eliminate some of the many committees that we have? That needs to be done.
That is exactly where we are at. So we are looking at how to take our big triangle and flatten it down.
I might add that to that. The present structure we have in our church, I was here when it was, and many of you were, when it was first formatted. It was back when Judy Wang and Jim O'Connor were our ministers, and we had a church that was much, much larger than this. We had many people who wanted to be active and couldn't be because positions were filled and we had extra people. So we created a structure where also for communication, we were having things that were overlapping. And so we created the structure we have now based on the population we had then and the needs we had then. Now we don't have as many people, and we see that we can do things better than what we have in the past. So any input you have on that also. As this committee, the governance committee that's working, we have some great people on that committee, and they'll be reporting to us on a regular basis. And I would want you to reiterate, if anytime you want to come to a council meeting or even staff parish, we have a staff parish committee, and they're both open. You just have to let us know, so that you can be on the agenda for either of those meetings, and you're welcome to speak up at any time. Okay, the Dale announced the Ad Council is on the 3rd Monday.
3rd Monday, right.
At 7 o'clock. And we meet in Fellowship Hall. And staff parish meets at various times, but that can be announced.
If you look at the bulletin, it's pretty much in there when it meets. It's more of when those bodies can get together.
And by the way, I have gone, it's kind of nervous the first time you go to a staff parish meeting because, you know, you're thinking these are the people that are in charge of our everything. But I have to tell you that the people are really nice people. and it's really important. It's important to say what you think, and that's why we're here today, is so that we can get, your recommendations and your thoughts. And if you have an idea of how we can better share this with other people and with everybody to get much input as we can, we welcome that. Also, I'm going to be on the nominating committee if you guys vote for, because you guys just voted me in. So I will be talking to some of you about ways that you can help with as we proceed.
Okay, I don't see any questions from the congregation. At this time, then, I'm going to entertain, well, first of all, we'll do a closing prayer, and then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
The Lord be with you. I will lead us in closing prayer with the prayer that we use at the end of Ad Council and the Governance Task Force. So let us pray. God of our lives, you are always calling us to follow you into the future, inviting us to new ventures, new challenges, new ways to care, new ways to touch the hearts of all. When we are fearful of the unknown, give us courage. When we worry that we are not up to the task, remind us that you would not call us if you did not believe in us. When we get tired or feel disappointed, remind us that you can bring hope and change out of any situation. God of our lives, call us into the future, and we will follow you. Even as we join together now in the prayer your Son taught us, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Okay, I request the motion to adjourn. Oh my goodness, Barb I'll give it to. All right, and Judy seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you very much for your time today.